Grand Rising. It's another beautiful morning on this plane, and I was just contemplating about some thoughts in regards to who I'm serving and who I'm not serving, because people like me, we can't serve everyone, and that's fine, and we're not supposed to. And there are certain people that will understand and understand where you're coming from. They will resonate with your message on some level, and some won't, right? And some will feel attacked by it, and some will feel like you're there to help them, right? And that's fine, because we're human anyways, right? Like we can't rip ourselves apart and be different people at the same time, sustainably at least. Like it's possible to pretend, and it's possible to play a certain role, and especially with addiction, right? Like we have this mask on and we play a different role for many years, but it all comes crumbling down eventually. It's just the way it is, because your soul just needs alignment, right? Your heart, it's all certain frequencies that are looking for alignment. And if you're constantly throwing in trash, from the top, consuming, ingesting, it's all the same in a sense, then you're constantly working against that. You're working against that intrinsic search for alignment. And that will eventually just set you up for failure, and you will, the universe will send you these little reminders where it's just knocking on your door and just telling you, hey, you're on the wrong track, my friend. Why don't you reevaluate your values, your mission, your goals, your habits, your way of life? Why don't you look at that? Why don't you take a strong look at that and see if there could be any change in this? And if you don't listen, if you don't want to listen to the knocks, it will wait a bit, and it will come back stronger and stronger, and eventually it's so strong that you will have to change, or you will leave this body and continue your journey. But you will get to that point where you will have to make that decision, and that's why in therapy and in recovery and in medicine, there is that notion that when the pain is big enough, then we change, right? And in a sense, it's true, because we don't have any other choice. Some people don't change. I mean, for me, it was definitely a catalyst, because I was in so much nerve pain that I couldn't live my life anymore. Like I wasn't capable of running my business anymore. I just was holding on to the threads and just barely making it work. Plus, I had the wrong business partners at the same time, and I had to get separated from them, and just the whole nother story. But it is what it is, and the pain was so big that stuff started crumbling down, right? Like either it's that turning point, or it's that initial catalyst, or it's that initial wake-up call that one needs. And for me, it was probably all of that, and it still wasn't enough to really say, okay, shit, I have to completely change my lifestyle, right? Like I started thinking about it, especially the relationships that I was in, that pain also came out of a situation where was a lot of emotional pain due to like friendship and girlfriend at the time, which catapulted me into this dark night of a soul, and eventually an old injury of mine, which I didn't even know about, came up, right? It just flared up. I understand now how it all works. It was very much fascia related, very much dehydration related. But then, all these spiritual levels, right? Like, they all played the biggest part in this. And, we just see these symptoms flare up, and we see these painful parts in our body flare up, and the nervous system is aching, and everything hurts, right? It's just a symptom. And if I would have listened to the first doctor, or actually the first couple that we went to, because I had good connections with all the specialists, right? Like all the surgeons, the neurosurgeons, the nerve specialists. Like, I went to like all the best doctors, and their best answer was, you need an operation and you need to put plates in there, right? And yeah, I refused to accept that. And that was, kind of that phase when I got into pain medication, and I was super deep on that shit, like opioids and tilidine and all that kind of stuff was basically my nutrition these days, right? And just nasty stuff, especially your mind and your soul, and like everything is just taking a hit. It's like you maybe have a little bit less of a pain, but like for me it didn't really work either. I took so much, like I took even, I think, like double the dosage, the allowance, and it would still not really work. And until my mother thought of medication that was specifically for nerve inflammation, and that one did the trick back then. I at that point I wasn't sleeping for, like, I think almost for 2 weeks. I couldn't really sleep because the pain was so big and like so excruciating that I just wasn't able to sleep. Like, I would crash, at some point, and I wake up because I couldn't move my neck, right? Like, I was completely stiff, so I couldn't lay down straight. I couldn't really sit, so standing was kind of the only solution. And yeah, it was nasty, but I needed it. All that stuff happens for you, and you will need some time to understand this, but it's just the way it is. That's how life works. It all happens for us. And just like that phase in my life, it happened for me, and I wouldn't be the person that I am now, if that didn't happen to me, and if that painful phase in my life weren't real, right? So it just happens for us. And if you're in a tough spot right now, maybe that's a hopeful statement here, but it's true. And just wait a bit and be patient, and you will see that it's true. But yeah, to get back to the initial point of this video, that we're not supposed to serve everyone, because I had some pushback about like one of the posts that I did. I mean, pushback, just someone completely misunderstanding my messages and my messaging behind my posts. And I was just thinking, okay, should I engage in this? But at some point you can sense that there's no point in engaging in these back and forths. That's not even a real discussion anymore. It's not even a normal conversation, right? And so it's not worth my time. And what I'm saying here is, like, we are the product in that sense, right? Like the people that have went through recovery, that have worked through their addictions, and that decide to help other people now, like we are the niche, right? Like we know exactly who to help and how to help them, and we're not supposed to help everybody. It's just the way it is. Like I've like perfected the path that I was on, that I'm still on, right? Like I'm still on my path. I'm still a work in progress. We all are, but like the help that I can offer now is basically the whole journey that I went through, without all the trial and errors, without all the waste of, time and money and energy, because I've done all the work, you know, like I've tried it all. Like I've literally almost tried everything that is out there, and I can, tell you what works and what doesn't, and I've picked what works and what doesn't, and I've picked the people that have helped me tremendously, that can also help you now in the background. Obviously my physio that I went to for 2 years straight, in the first year like 4 or 5 times a week, and then in the second maybe like twice, I cannot offer him, right? But I can help you with the other people that work on the energetics in the background, and some other stuff, right, that I can talk to you about in a discovery call if you want. But those people were so crucial in my journey, and with aligning the recovery process, with aligning the work that you do with yourself and with your therapist and with your guide and with your mentor and with your doctor, that there needs to be an energetic alignment in the background, right? When you work on the subconscious and on the programming, and when you lift off certain things, when you fix the aura, there are certain energetic imprints that need to be lifted, right? And that need to be aligned. And you can do that with remedies, with natural remedies that don't fucking slap you across the face, like prescription drugs. And so that stuff, just a little hint of how I work, right? Amongst like all the other crucial pillars that we work on. But like that's a very important pillar, and I have specialists in the background that help me with that, because I know exactly what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And I'm not pretending that I'm good at everything, because I'm not. But with the help of these people and these amazing humans, the 90-Day 101 is a well-rounded approach to make this work, if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to surrender to the process, because I've had a discovery call the other day with a human, and he was kind of saying that he was ready, but he was not. I asked him, like, are you ready to do stuff that you've never done before? Are you ready to surrender to the process? Are you ready to hand over to me and let me guide you? Because that's ultimately what needs to happen. You need to be able to let go of these old ways of doing shit, of these old programs that you've been programmed with, because clearly it's not working, right? Like you've either relapsed, or you've never had the chance to work through addictions, or you thought you were clean, but something happened and you got back into it. Maybe years later that happened. And like I talk about this often, right? Like if you don't actually work on the root, if you're just moving away, removing the symptoms, and it seems like you're free from your addictive tendencies, if there's one crisis in your life, a major crisis, you will relapse. It's just the way it is, because you haven't actually worked on the root. And so if you haven't also aligned all these pillars in your life, right, that we also look at and that we work on, that's crucial, then the chances that you relapse are also high, because you need to align all of those, right? Like you need to align the body, you need to align the soul, you need to align, your habits in your life, you need to align your environment, you need to align, all these small little parts and pieces that are crucial to glue all of this together, so it's a system that works for you sustainably. You know, it's mind-boggling to me when there's coaches out there that just work on the mental. It's mind-boggling to me. Like, we will work on the subconscious, we will work on these programs that run you in the background, because there are some that kind of push you into that spiritual void in a sense, right? They are there, but we will work on those. But that's not it. That's not just it. And it cannot just be that, because if you just work on that, like, the other pillars that are not aligned with that will keep on pulling you in a certain direction that's not your center. To keep it simple, if you haven't detoxed properly from, whatever substance you have been using for many years and months, your intrinsic setup will sabotage you. If you haven't fixed the gut, if you haven't cleansed the gut, if you haven't cleansed parasites, if you haven't worked on heavy metals and all that stuff, it will keep on pulling you off center. You will have this aha moment, when you work on the mental for a bit, and like, shit, man, like something lifted, like I felt it in the body, But if you don't address the rest, it's not a cohesive and sustainable approach. It's just the way it is. And believe me, I've tried it all. Like, I know it's not. And I've worked with people that thought they were fixed in a sense, but they weren't, because they just ignored everything else, because they had this aha moment with a detox program, or with a mental coach and with a coach that lifted their programs and worked with them on the habits and the mental frameworks, and that's all valid. They're all valid, but you have to do all of it, and in a certain order. So what I'm saying is, you don't have to buy my program. But if you're doing the work right now, and if you're looking for help, look for someone that understands that it is a holistic approach that is needed. That soul, body, and mind aren't separate. You cannot pull those apart and work on them, separately, and then, 1 year in between, and especially not with addiction, because like that stuff is just such a fluid system that works well together, that will constantly keep you pulling back there. If you're inflamed in the gut, one example, right? If you're inflamed in the gut and you're constantly thinking that you're taking the right supplements and you're taking the right medicine and all that kind of stuff, like what do you think happens in the gut and in the intestines? If it's inflamed, it cannot absorb whatever you put in there in the right order and in the right way. Just cannot absorb it. Not even the nutrients that you put in. You can eat all the organic food that you want, but if you have an inflamed internal system, it just basically pours through. That could be a reason why you're not getting better. You think you're doing all the right things, you think you're taking all the right supplementation, you think you're taking all the right medicine, all the right juices and stuff, but nothing's happening because you haven't fixed the absolute basis of things. It's your immune system, it's your lymphatic system. All these systems, they're the absolute basic of addiction recovery. Because I can guarantee you, throughout the years of you drinking alcohol and taking all these pills and stuff, like you've been constantly inflaming that system. Your whole system is aching, and it's probably in such pain that you have to help with certain medication to just get going, with anti-acidic pills and all that shit, because you constantly have reflux maybe and acid reflux and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, those are all thoughts that went into these programs, and I'm telling you, if you don't fix the basics, then you can pour as much as you want on top. It won't work. It's just the way it is. So yeah, look for someone that understands this. If it doesn't resonate what I'm saying, but just take that tip at least. because it is the only way that you will, be successful with this sustainably, is if you, and just like basically work on these basics first, and then you build up on that, right? And if you are interested in what I'm doing, then just hop on a call with me. It's a free call, and let's talk. I will explain to you how we work and what we work on. And I have a couple spots left on the founding members cohort, which means there's a big discount on it. And also, I have a money back guarantee that I put on top of it, which will only be valid for this founding member cohort. And also, I have 24/7 support added onto it, which will only be accessible for the T1 group later on, which is substantially more expensive, but that's the way it is when you want to be able to text me at any time of the day and any day of the week, right? I will only have 3 spots for that monthly anyways, because otherwise it's not possible. So yeah, hit me up, on IG. There's the link in the bio for the questionnaire, or DM me freedom on Instagram, and then you will get the option to ask questions or to fill out the questionnaire, which is the application process, because you have to go through the application process to work with me, because I have to, and I want to know if you are ready for this, because I only pour my time and effort into this if you're really 100% ready for this. So there's the application process, and yeah, if you want to hop on a free call with me, then do so. If not, I wish you all the best on your journey. Good day.